Hey everyone, Victor here. So, one thing a couple people have asked me about is my own story. Like, how did I become a developer? Why did I go into maps? How did that all work? And how has it worked out for me? It's not something that I imagine anyone would really be interested in, but maybe for a couple people, it can help give you some confidence on your own path towards whatever career you're working on or following your own kind of interests. So I'll kind of go over things a little bit. I'm not going to obviously talk about the whole story of my life or whatever, but just a bit about how on the career side of things, it's sort of worked out and my general approach. And maybe that's helpful for somebody out there. So I definitely didn't start off trying to be a map developer or even really like a developer. I am a self-taught programmer. So after I finished my bachelor's degree at university, which was in humanities, had nothing to do with computer science, I figured that I could probably make websites for people. And I grew up with my dad running a business, trying out different ideas a lot while I was growing up. So I kind of had that confidence instilled in me that I could just kind of make it work. And I had the support of my dad in giving that a shot and his expertise and stuff. So I started learning how to freelance, just posting anywhere, getting jobs in any manner, Craigslist, Kijiji, which we have up in Canada. And over time, just started some very, very basic skills, like just barely enough to pay rent, sort of thing. And that worked for me for a long time. And it was only much later that I ever got into map development. I was really just a general mercenary web person for a very long time, a lot of working on WordPress sites, a lot of just trying to fix any problem that someone would pay me to fix, basically. So finally, I ended up doing like a single course in HTML5 with UBC in Vancouver. It was like a 2 day course or something. And I realized that I actually knew a lot more than I thought. You know, just being a self taught person, you never really feel like you actually know what's going on. You feel like there's like magical developer people out there who really understand. And so when I did that course, it kind of opened my eyes like, wow, I actually do kind of understand this stuff. I just never knew the right words for all of it. So after that, I did a bunch of courses on Team Treehouse, which is like one of those online learning platforms. And I just went ham on that. I just went totally did it like all day, did it for 10 hours a day for weeks. And I just learned a ton. And after that, I was sort of like more comfortable being a developer. I could like talk a little bit with other developers, knew what I knew and knew what I didn't know a lot more. And then finally, you know, getting into actually how I got into maps is I've always been really driven to do things I'm interested in relation to my job or my work, or even when I was doing academics, I'd always like try to write papers about stuff that was like weird and offbeat and interesting to me. So I've always been fairly activist oriented. I'm less so now than I used to be, but back when I first moved to Vancouver, there was a lot of work going on around Indigenous rights. There still is today, but it was really blowing up at that time, and there was some pipeline related stuff. And I got involved in some of these like activist things that were going on. And I wanted to find a way to use my web skills to sort of like help these things that I was involved in. And I tried a few different things, and eventually I came upon this idea of mapping out Indigenous territories around where I lived so that I could see it, and so I knew a bit more about like what was going on in different places. And ultimately it led to this website land.ca, which is kind of like the biggest site I ever made and is really a mapping focused site. And that was the first time I had really ever done mapping. And it really grew out of like a hobby project, a passion project. And over time, that grew enormously. And I had to learn a lot. I had to learn everything about mapping that I talk about on this channel. Pretty much that's where I started learning it all. I didn't really know anything about maps before that. I hardly knew anything about coordinates. I didn't know different mapping libraries. I'd never heard of a shapefile or a GeoJSON or what the heck that might even mean. So I worked a lot with different libraries, and I had to turn all these maps into like digital maps. Again, I had no idea how to do it. I just hacked away at it however I could. And my lesson from that I'd love to share with people is like, just hack away at things. It's okay to get it working badly if it's just something you can make happen. You can figure it out later. You can do it better later. If you're driven by something you're actually interested in, that's your best strategy towards making something that is good, that other people might actually want to look at. So Native Land grew over time. It was a ton of work. Eventually, it became a nonprofit. I went through the whole process of learning how to do a nonprofit, board of directors, hiring people. It was just a whole huge thing that I won't get into here. That's a subject for a totally different video. But it did launch a lot. It had, even though it was never like a source of profit for me personally, it became that way in a career sense because it was so big that a lot of people got to know me through it, got to know that I worked with maps, got to know that I worked with Indigenous communities, and also got to know that I'm generally interested in kind of passion type projects, especially if they have a kind of social impact angle, whatever that angle might be. So a lot of these people would reach out to me, and that really kind of fired things up. And then I also was using Upwork a lot to just look for specifically mapping jobs, and I would just hunt these down. Mapbox, Google Maps, Leaflet. I just find whatever. And I soon found that there was much more jobs than I could personally take on. And I thought I'd give it a shot at maybe hiring someone else to do some of this work. I'd never really run a company where I had developers or anything like that. But I tried it out once. I hired someone else off Upwork and it worked beautifully. It was so easy to hand stuff over to this person. He was a great developer, kind of that lucky first timer stuff. So that was the beginning of Mapster, which is this company that I run this YouTube channel under, and it's kind of been my company for a little while. And that company went through lots of phases as well. It grew and I reached crazy burnout levels with it. You know, I had been working really hard, just like learning all this stuff around payroll and how to hire people, how to delegate projects, and how to just like office stuff and legal insurance. And there's just so many pieces when you start running a business that are just a lot to manage. And, you know, at the end of the day, you also have to make sure that everything's financially solid. And things were going great, but I personally wasn't doing that well. And it just took over my life to a point where eventually I kind of blew it up, or I kind of downscaled would be a nice way to say it. And it wasn't really a pleasant process, not for me or the people that were working for me, because some people I had to lay off because I just couldn't handle running the business at that level. And I learned a lot about myself in that time, that I like running something smaller. I like running something where I can take days off. I'm not necessarily really well acclimatized to being like a CEO of a larger or even really medium-sized company. I like something small with just a couple people or just me, you know, doing my thing, working on new projects all the time. So that's where we come to with Mapster. And then it just kind of continued for a few years running at that kind of small size until about midway through last year. You know, I had really been feeling like I wanted to step back from a few things. I stepped back from Native Land officially. And in Mapster, again, I kind of downscaled a little more to just make it really relaxed, where I knew I could take some time off working on projects continually and maybe work on a couple new things. This YouTube channel being one of them. I also have a WordPress plugin that I've been really messing around with. And then just whatever little ideas come up, new maybe career path, maybe I go to academics, maybe I try some new thing out there. I really like having the space to do new stuff and try new things. And web development has been really great for that because I got so much freedom from it to kind of run my life in my own hours so that I could keep learning new things, trying new stuff. So that's where we're at. You know, mapping has actually been a fantastic niche, and it's led into so many other things that I can do, so many other industries and so many great connections that I still get a blast out of mapping. Even when I try to run away from it and do something different, I do end up coming back to it because I find it really fun. So that's my little story. I'd be happy to share more about the details, or if there's parts of that that you're going through that you want a bit of help with, or maybe my experience can help, or you just want to learn more about the mapping side and like what jobs are out there, what are the opportunities. I'm happy to share. So leave a comment if you want. I don't know if anyone will watch this video, but there it is, and hope you have a great day.